Hey all, it's your girl Aaron, and today I wanted to have a talk about USA politics, talking about the progressive attempt to take over the Democratic Party and how that's going, where it looks, etc. Um, um, if you notice, there's like some trees that are knocked down here. Yeah, I'm making a separate video to show myself like getting rid of those trees and stuff. Um, recently moved into this house, and the goal is that it can be a commune at some point. So we've got to start getting it ready for that. And the first step is to create an enclosure so that we can have the cats come outside and not go into the wild. And that'll help us with the whole flow of the house and stuff. Um, so that when we want to do something like painting, we can like put the cats outside and paint, etc. So the first step is to do the enclosure, which means to get rid of the trees. So yeah, I'm still busy. I need to still clear them out and stuff. But just in case you're curious, um, hopefully you can't hear the cars too loudly. We are actually in lockdown, but there's quite a few cars. So anyway, getting on to politics. So I think that there was a genuine um, potential for there to be a successful takeover of the Democratic Party by progressives. So at first, it looked like when Bernie was running in 2016 that he was going to potentially win and reform the party to be like that, but he didn't win. And so a lot of people were upset with him that he didn't try to do something like run third party, or he didn't call out all the corruption and point out all the rigging that was against him. He kind of just accepted it and tried to get people to vote for Hillary, who was like super corrupt and stuff. And I think that actually did hurt the movement when he did that. That a lot of people jumped ship and are now too disenfranchised or disengaged to actually try and help him win the nomination this time, which is unfortunate because I think the only reason why a lot of people sort of gave him a pass for doing it last time is because they thought he was going to run again. So, in the context of him wanting to run again, it wouldn't make sense for him to burn all his bridges down, etc. They just wouldn't let him run the next time. So, he was trying to win by appealing to people to get them to vote for him and win via like sort of a old school belief in democracy that isn't that popular anymore, but really genuinely wanting people to make an educated decision when they vote and to vote in their best interest and vote for his platform. That's how he wanted to win, because winning that way means that people will be on board for the changes when they come. And so um, part of the strategy is that by winning through that, winning people over basically who were Democrats before to his progressive platform, that when it comes to actually fighting for those policies to be put into place, you could potentially have the whole Democratic Party behind you if it worked. Now, unfortunately, the media has done quite a good job of covering up for Joe Biden, who is, I think, completely disqualified, is not really a viable candidate. Um, he's a rapist. He can't really finish his sentences, and he's got a very corporate-friendly neoliberal platform that is got like bankers and stuff in the cabinets. It's just corporate takeover. Trump is corporate takeover with tax breaks for the rich, and Biden is corporate takeover. Both candidates are corporate takeover candidates. And there's the argument for harm reduction, in that trying to run third party and failing could stop the Democrats from winning and allow the Republicans to win and do a lot more damage than the Democrats would do if they had won. And that's a strategy that is worth considering. Um, that you have to consider it case by case. It can't be something that you just stamp as always your strategy. Because if it's something that people can rely on you for doing, then you don't have any leverage. So it should be more selective, and you shouldn't guarantee it all the time, because if you do, it loses its power. That compromising thing. So what the corporate media has tried to display is that Biden is a compromise between like Bernie and Trump, where in reality, the way they should be framing it is Bernie is a compromise between like revolution and neoliberalism. Obviously, it's in their own interests to get a corporate-friendly nominee, etc. So we don't need to think of conspiracy theories and stuff. They would just be following profits to get Biden the nomination. But anyway, assuming Bernie doesn't win the nomination, because it's a sad reality, but it kind of is up to the corporate media. If they actually start making an issue out of Joe Biden being a rapist, then Joe Biden might not win. But if they continue to cover up for him, then he very likely will be the nominee. And so we have to ask ourselves if we are going to do the same thing last time, like as activists or whatever, are we going to say do harm reduction again, or where, at what point? Because I don't really think Biden can win, no matter how much unifying. If Hillary couldn't win when people unified behind her in greater numbers than did for Obama from her supporters from before, so Bernie supporters were generally even more unifying than Hillary supporters, but even that didn't get Hillary to win. And Biden is a much worse candidate. He's way more flawed. And Trump is a much stronger candidate than before as well. Obviously, he hasn't done things that have been good. He's done a lot of horrible, terrible things. But he's a stronger candidate because there's a lot of horrible, terrible people who see it as a plus. And those are the people you need to try and outnumber in the polls by getting the good people to go and vote. And you can't really get enthusiasm for those kinds of people to go and vote for someone who's a rapist, someone who they don't actually think can even do the job, who is going to be marginally better than Trump, but not substantially. And it's not going to have a meaningful change in their lives. So then we have to look at the strategy of taking over the Democratic Party. Is it still something we should consider? Is it still viable? And I think if the people who were in the party, the Bernie, AOC, like if all those people wanted to continue doing that strategy, wanted to continue fighting the establishment, trying to take over the party aggressively and make it a progressive social democratic party, if they still wanted to do it and they were still out there fighting for that, then it would be something worth considering to keep doing, I think. Now, I don't think it should be the only thing. I mean, you can support that while also supporting a progressive third party. So it's not exclusive. So if they want to keep doing it, it doesn't mean we shouldn't look at a third party, but it does make it something that we can at least consider. But it doesn't actually appear like that's what they want to do. So it doesn't even become an option anymore. Without them, the champions who've already gotten elected to the Democratic Party seats who are progressive, if they are giving up on that goal of taking over the party, then it's pretty much over. So that strategy is no longer in play. And if we look at the bailout, the Democrats didn't give anything in the bailout. Like, they didn't add any benefits. They just allowed for, the ratio is like 10 to 1, corporates to working class, the bailout numbers so far. And so basically those at the 1% are getting 10 times more than the 99% split the money. And the Democratic Party, they all voted for it. Like, all the people who are supposed to be progressives voted for that. They didn't try and stop it. They didn't, while it's true that we need a stimulus for our economies, you can't just slam through any stimulus that is being offered. It has to be something that's actually going to help. And this kind of stimulus doesn't help, because when you give the top 1% tons more money than the bottom 99%, and then the bottom 99% are going bankrupt and losing their homes in mass, then those the 1% with that extra money now can just buy it all up, create bigger monopolies, consolidate their power, and you've just fast-tracked the corporate takeover. And that's the bill that Bernie and AOC had voted for. And if they might have thought it's the only way they can possibly get that 1,200 to people, but that's still a choice they made. They gave up on challenging that kind of thing. They didn't stand up for it. Whether they would have taken heat for it, fine. But they needed to be able to take the heat and fight back and overcome that narrative to actually succeed. And so, functionally speaking, they are signaling that they are giving up on that strategy and they're trying to play nice with the establishment who are corporately owned. And so that strategy for taking over the Democratic Party, I think it's time to be abandoned because the people who were fighting for it have given up, and because the Democratic Party, if they nominate Joe Biden, well, you can't really both support a rapist and try to take over that party to be progressive. You have to sit it out if you actually want to have any kind of moral authority and principles to stand on left. So the progressive part of the party that was trying to take it over, even if they want to keep trying to do that, they would need to not support Biden to keep that strategy alive. You know, like if they try to support Biden like the way of Hillary, well, this time it's not going to cut it, and people are just not going to have the patience left for it. Because Bernie isn't going to be running next time, is he? So there's no calculation of let's not burn it now. Like, no, you have to burn the bridges now because there is no tomorrow if you don't. And so if they don't do that, that strategy is over. And so we will actually probably need to abandon our support for those people in a large part and start supporting the people who are actually going the third party route and try and build that up to be strong enough to take on to take on the Democratic Party. And even if that means taking a loss now, well, we're going to be taking a loss anyway if Biden's the nominee. There's no way you can resuscitate that kind of nominee. And if they take it from Biden and give it to another person who isn't Bernie, who got less votes than Bernie, same story. It's an undemocratic process. You can't get behind that. It has to be the person with the most votes to really have that social justice principle. And so Bernie will have the most votes if Biden drops down or is disqualified, e.g., you know, people put pressure on him to step down because of all this nonsense, or people stop voting for him and get Bernie the nomination. And if people like Bernie aren't willing to actually call Biden out on the rape allegations and stuff, that's signaling that he does want to get behind Biden, which is signaling that he isn't taking those allegations as seriously as he should. And I made a video before about why doing so is actually a sign that he has some internalized sexist thoughts, because there's no calculations that can make that math work out where you're endorsing and trying to get enthusiasm for rapists. So I think I just wanted to mention that, like, even now AOC is falling in line with the corporate narratives and the democratic establishments and stuff, and sure, this might be a slip and they might try and come back, but it just shows how weak that strategy is when you don't have any other options. And so having another option is the highest priority. And this is the perfect time to do it. And I think if people don't do it this time, well, they are still going to have to do it. They have just delayed it, and they're just going to have even more nonsense to deal with because they've waited another 4 years before they were actually willing to invest in that. And so if they won't do it now, you know, if they won't abandon Bernie and that strategy now and do it, they are, who knows how many times more, have to lose and have the Republicans going further and further right and the Democrats chasing them. It's going to end up actually being a revolution probably before they, you know, before it actually materializes on its own. So you either got to invest in it now, or, you know, you got to take your chances that you won't invest in it in a quick enough time. You'll wait long enough that the corporate takeover completes. You become a dictatorship, neo-feudal style, maybe, and then it will have to be by revolution because all other means will have been exhausted. But before those means are exhausted, starting a third party is one of those means that can avoid that. And even the pressure you put on, even if you don't win, you'll be putting on pressure that will be slowing it down. And then when you win, you can actually start slowing it down a lot. Of course, you can't stop it or reverse it without efforts that go beyond electoral politics. But electoral politics, the ability to slow it down and almost stop, it's like putting it in the freezer so it doesn't decay as fast. And that buys you the time to build those non-electoral movements and stuff that can help people out where capitalism and the state can't. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what people are going to choose to do, but I do know, in my opinion, that now is the time for a third-party movement. And it's got to be progressive. And the strategy to take over the Democratic Party, if Bernie doesn't get the nomination, it's done, it's over. I think we need to stop dreaming about that, because even the other champions are no longer willing to even back progressives, and even AOC has like endorsed someone who was more corporate against a progressive in one of the down ballot races. That strategy is over there. It took 2 years to go from being willing to take on the establishment to towing the line. So, at least in a third party, it might not be that good. Anyway, that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for watching.